What does great consistency in a high-level insurance agency look like? Well, on today's Agent Leader podcast, I interview Dan Elliott, managing partner of the Diebold Agency in Michigan. And this is an agency that continues to crush their sales goals year after year after year after year, and they continue to learn and grow and adapt. This is a dynamic sales organization that also provides exceptional service. And Dan talks about that marriage between sales and service that helps them achieve the results that most agencies are looking for. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Agent Leader Podcast. This is the podcast for agency leaders to learn, to grow, to develop, and ultimately become their best version possible. It's a pleasure to be with you on this episode. My name is Brent Kelly. I'm the host of the Agent Leader Podcast. And on today's episode, I have a fantastic guest, someone who is a longtime friend and client of the Sitkins Group, someone that I've had the pleasure of getting to know very well over the last several years in our relationship. He is a managing partner. He is a sales leader. He is a producer. He's a husband. He's a dad. He's got kids everywhere. I know the feeling. I have managing partner of the Diebold Agency in the great state of Michigan, Dan Elliott. Dan, welcome to the Agent Leader Podcast.
Brent, thanks for having me on this morning. Look forward to a conversation and really moving forward on a discussion about what's been working for us and the value that Sitkins has added to our team.
Yeah, I can't wait. Love getting the chance to talk to you. As most of you will not know, Dan and I will have conversations in our professional relationship and reach out personally on different stuff. I know he's a big Michigan State fan, so we'll talk some Big Ten talk once in a while. But way more important than that, and for you, the agent leader listener and watcher of this podcast, is he's got a wealth of experience. And as a managing partner of the Diebold Agency, they've had tremendous growth over many, many years. So Dan, if you would just give an overview of your role, a little bit about the agency, take some time to brag on Diebold and where you've come from, where you are, and where you're going.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. It's a great question. It's a great history. I'm actually fourth generation in the family business. My great grandpa started in 1929, one location, and then my grandfather came in and really was the pioneer of the start of our agency with Tawas Bay Insurance. And then 1983, my dad acquired Diebold Insurance in West Branch with his brothers. They opened up a Houghton Lake office in Michigan in 97, 2007, 2008, went and opened an office in Detroit. And then about 2 years ago now, we acquired an agency over on the west side of Michigan in Muskegon. Me personally, I worked at Auto Owners on the carrier side for a couple of years out of college, 2011 to 14. From then I came back as a producer in the agency, really developing my own book of business, cultivating relationships, setting some lofty goals and making sure I held myself accountable to achieve them. I've been at the agency now for 10 years. I've been an owner now for 2 years, perpetuated my dad out of the business. As on the personal side, we've talked about, he still pops his head in on occasion, but it's been a successful transition. And it's tremendous growth over the last couple of years. This year is no different. This is our best sales year we've had in company history, and look forward to continuing that. Thankful very much for your guidance, your support, and your direction.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I want to, as you stated some stuff there, I don't want to take it lightly because, again, there's so many family agencies out there. We work with many of them, and it's great to see that, fourth generation, like congrats, right, to keep those things going. But something you said was interesting. You went to work at Auto Owners. I know you, and you're not going to say much bragging, but you went out there, you've built a really nice book of business. You've worked your tail off. And I think there's a lot to be said as a family agency because let's face it, when you think about a family agency, the people around you, what do a lot of people think? Oh, well, you're there because you're the kid, right? It's your name. And yes, there's some reality to that. But what I think is really exceptional, Dan, as you said that, it just brought to my attention of, I will say this and tell me if you agree with this or not, and then some things that you've learned in this process. But I always tell a lot of people that are in family agencies that you've got to prove yourself almost twice as much as others, because there's always that stigma of, oh, well, yeah, it's a family agency. And you have done the things first of all, I'd love to hear the fact that you went to Auto Owners versus, hey, I came out and now I just get this cushy job, right? You went and worked on the carrier side. And then the fact that you went out there and earned your keep, like, and I'm not going to get into specific numbers, but you've got a nice book of business. You went out there and proved yourself. So maybe give me your perception of that. Being in a family agency, having the name, the legacy there, how did you find your way to prove yourself, or what things did you do or see in that process, Dan?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the family agencies. It's an incredible way to do business, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. And
Yep.
my grandparents, grandpa, and then my dad and his brothers had a nice rule at the agency that we had to go work for a carrier for 2 or 3 years, get some real life experience, understand the industry, the ins and outs of what we do and why we do it. And then when we're ready, that's when, if it makes sense at the agency level, that's when we come back to the agency. And myself, my brother Pete, my cousin Ben, all of us have gone through that process at different carriers and different levels. And it's hard to even verbalize the value that brought to all of us in our roles at the agency. Now, when we talk about earning your stripes and that target on your back that you have, you just got to work significantly harder. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. You got to do things the right way, because you do have that target on your back. Everybody's looking at you as, hey, you're in my situation, Kevin's son. This is something you got to go out and earn. And, myself and my brother Pete have done a great job of going out there and building that relationship and rapport with our staff, showing we're willing to put in the time. We're willing to put in the effort. We're all in this together as a team. And it's not something that's just handed to you. It's something that you really have to go out there and earn. And you got to work twice as hard as anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Dan, one of my favorite quotes, John Maxwell, it's pretty famous at this point. He says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And, it's not title, it's not position. And I think, what you stated is super important there, because, to come in at whatever age, and be like, well, this is my name and my title, so now you all have to follow and listen to me. It doesn't work that way, right? I mean, part of it is, yes, at some point there is an aspect of maybe I'm the one signing the check or different things, but who do people follow, and why do they follow them, and why should I listen to you? And the thing that you mentioned, Dan, and you didn't use this word, so I'll use it, is that the first aspect of great leadership is modeling, right? Modeling the mindset, modeling the behaviors. So from an aspect of culture, right? And you guys have done some, that doesn't mean there's not challenges. We'll talk about those. But from an aspect of culture, how have you and Pete and leadership team in general, what have you done to help instill a culture that you desire, that you want, right? The things that you've mentioned before, leading a team and believing in them and helping them and serving them.
Yeah. So, really two different things. And I'm going to pat your back here with everything that Sitkins has done. We aren't just an insurance agency, right? We're truly a sales organization, and that's how we want to position ourselves. We're a sales and a service organization. Sales drives our growth. Service drives our growth. And that's something that we've really put an emphasis on at the agency. Is Sitkins has done a great job of ingraining the culture of sales and service, and same goal, different role. I mean, I don't know how many times you talk about that in your meetings. I'm sure you say that a few times through the year. But it's truly the way that business has to be done. We have high performance teams in our agencies. You guys talk about high performance teams all the time in your coaching. Vitally important that you're driving towards the same goal of putting new business on the books, keeping good business on the books. In this market, it's incredibly challenging. Everybody knows what's going on with the current insurance market, but it's also a great opportunity in the marketplace. People want to look at different solutions, and if your service team is pushing your sales team to get out of the office, we'll take care of the clients. We know our job is to take care of the clients. It's really changed our culture of getting the salespeople out of the office, getting in that green zone 80% of the time, doing what they should be doing. And I think that's probably our biggest cultural shift, is realizing that we're not against each other, sales and service. We're really together as a team. And forever it was, hey, they're just writing business and dumping work on us. Sure, optics, that's what it looks like in some situations. But the value that we can communicate to our team and show them, hey, here is where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there. And we can't do it without the same goal, different role mentality at the agency.
Yeah. It's so well said. And yeah, we do preach and teach it all the time. It's important. And it's interesting as I do a number of these podcasts and I ask questions about, things you've taken away and things you're installing. I mean, that has just continues to come up again and again. And I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but my belief, and it's not a belief, it's a reality. If we don't have good internal relationships and internal communication, we will not have great external relationships and external communication. It fizzles out. And you're right. I mean, just the culture, and you said that, Dan, the fact that, if a producer were to come into the office, of course, our producer perfect schedule, but middle of the week during sales time, and you've got the service team going, what are you doing? Like, go do what you need to go do. We got your back. We'll support this part. You go do what you have to do, is quite frankly pretty uncommon in a lot of agencies. So kudos to you for, again, appreciate the fact we were able to help in that, but you're the one and your leadership team driving that and reinforcing that. And of course, getting buy-in from your team. Here's what I believe. I believe success leaves clues. And I know that as an agency, you've had successes. We're going to talk about some of the challenges because I think as a leader of this podcast or a listener of this podcast who's a leader, we can take away, and success leaves clues. So if you would, Dan, again, maybe this is a recent success, maybe it's a few years back, it doesn't matter. You can pick the one that jumps out, but could you highlight a success the agency's had, what you learned from that, and how you're able to achieve that type of success in whatever area it is?
Yeah, and when we talk about successes at the agency, it can be on a lot of different levels, right? It can be something organizationally we did, something sales wise we did, different benchmarking that we can do. When I look back at, as a sales organization, what's our best success? We're going to look at sales, and it's really not a 1 year thing. When I look back at these numbers and the growth we've had over the last couple of years, we've hit our annual sales goal now 3 years in a row. We fell short a little bit with that COVID year, but 3 years in a row now of hitting a team goal. This year we hit our team sales goal by October 1st. As of yesterday, when I pulled the numbers, we're 125% of our team sales goal for the year. Right now, I've got 75% of my producers and sales team, risk advisors that have already hit goal. I'm anticipating 90% by December 1st. And there's one or two that we need to continue to push a little bit. And I think that a lot of this is driven by the green zone, getting out of the office, the motivating, the pushing them. One thing that you had done for me, and I don't know if you remember this or not, we had talked about how do we motivate these people? How do we get them to continue push week to week to week to get to these numbers? And you had given me this point probably 4 or 5 years ago now. You said, Dan, how visible is it? And, when I looked at it, I'm like, well, we send out the reports occasionally, and we show everybody where they're at. You had told me to make it more visible. And what we do now is every Thursday or Friday, I'll send out everybody on the sales team. I'll send the agenda for the Monday meeting. It's got their name listed. It's got their revenue goal. It's got their year-to-date revenue and their percentage to goal. And we'll change that list, right? So you can see climbing, falling, and where you're at. And it's amazing the competitiveness that it's been, that's brought to the sales team. And it's really filtered out to not just the sales team, but now the service team's looking at it, right? And they're talking to their salesperson and say, hey, what are we going to do to climb this list? How are we going to get up in this list? I'm sick of being at the bottom of this list. Or you'll hear some taunting from my brother about how he's on the top of the list. But it's really created a nice culture around the competitiveness and the importance of putting that new business on the books.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't remember that exact conversation, but I do talk about that, right? And visible. And I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to stop and slow. I should slow down. I guess I won't stop, but slow down on something you said, and I'm going to say it in my language because for all the agent leaders listening right now, I would have to ask you this question. Are you an agency that has a great service culture that does sales when it's convenient? Or are you a dynamic sales culture that provides exceptional service? And what you have gravitated to, Dan, and this is over a period of years, like you said, there's consistency behind it, right? I'm sure that's there. Would you agree there's probably bad weeks and even bad months that happen?
100%. Yeah.
But part of it is going back to the roots of the culture. Okay, great, but we are a dynamic sales organization. And those things that you're talking about are so important. Even that last thing you mentioned, going back to the high performance teams, the fact that you've got service professionals going, come on, Dan, like we got to get this thing going, right? We're on this team together and we want to go win. And one thing, and this is actually, I'm sure you would answer the same way. I don't know if I've asked you this, but I remember Roger Sitkins, obviously, and your dad go back a long way. And I don't know if you know the story, but Roger was with your dad. I don't know if they're playing golf somewhere, and Roger's always asking questions. He's like, Kevin, is it about money or is it about winning? Winning.
The winning.
I want to win. The cool thing about winning is that the money comes with it. So,
Absolutely.
right. So I applaud you for that. And just again, for the listeners, the visible thing to me is important. I know I overuse sports analogies. They're easy to use. They're probably overused, but unless you're playing like super peewee sports, like you probably played sports for the scoreboard. Like I knew in a game if I was up or down. I didn't
Right.
like being down. And most people are wired that way. And even if it's not just, oh, you're always chasing a number, it's no, I'm chasing the result that, I've got a goal and in mind that I want to achieve. And if it's hidden in a drawer or it's not discussed or it's only talked about every 6 months, I just don't have the awareness that I should around it. So kudos to you. And Dan, when you say visible, are those things, are they posted around the office? Is it just discussed every week? Like, what does that look like tangibly?
No, it's emailed out to the entire staff.
Okay.
So our whole entire sales team gets it. Generally, the service team will see it during the HPT meetings that they're having so they can
Yep.
keep their eyes on it from an accountability standpoint.
Yep.
And then I send a full sales report with everybody's numbers out to the entire organization quarterly is when we
Yep.
send that.
Yeah, and I'll use, since I like to overuse them, Dan. Here I go again. But if you're playing again, I don't care if it's basketball, football; those are the two that come to my mind. But like, imagine like you don't have any conversations about the behaviors and action you're taking until a week after the game's over. And that happens a lot of
Right.
agencies. I mean, the year ends, and you're like, "Oh, Dan, you didn't hit your goal this year." I didn't. You're right. I guess I did. Hey, next year, let's go hit that goal. Okay, next game versus first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and we're talking about, hey, what's going on here? Help me understand. How can I help empower you? What tools do you need? What conversations do we need to have? Right, all those things are part of getting people over the hump. So, all right, next question I want to get into is challenges, struggles, frustrations, because I know you don't have any. But if you could, Dan, highlight, maybe a major challenge, obstacle that either you're dealing with now or maybe you have dealt with and you've overcome it. Just what really jumps out as your biggest frustration or challenge you're dealing with either now or in the past?
Yeah, I think that you can go a lot of different ways with this, and I'm not going to sit here and complain about the current insurance market. This is all something everybody knew was coming, and something that had to be corrected. And every agency out there is doing what they can to deal with that. I think that the biggest challenge that most agencies have right now is finding quality sales staff. Building that pipeline of quality producers to scale the business. Because to get where you want to be in 5 and 10 years, I can't sit here and tell my salespeople to go write 10% more every year. Sure, you're going to grow, and that's going to be nice, and everybody's going to enjoy that at the agency level. But finding real quality people to sell and service the business is a challenge. And we've got 5 locations around the state of Michigan, and some are better than others when it comes to the talent that's available. But really keeping our eye to it of building a pipeline of salespeople and a pipeline of service people to bring into the organization, because that's just as crucial as your production pipeline that your salespeople have. Right? It is. You never know when something's going to happen to a service person or a salesperson, and you need to fill that. And the fact that you can have 5 or 10 resumes sitting there to flip through saying, hey, remember this person, remember that person. It's vitally important. And then, you're looking at where are these people coming from? And that's everybody's challenge, right? Are they within the industry? Are they out of the industry? Do they have sales experience? Do they not have sales experience?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you can really make any of those work. Depends on how you set it up and how much time you can put into it. But, that is probably our largest challenge right now is onboarding as many people as we can, because we are going through some exponential growth, and it's been great. But we need to make sure that those clients that we're bringing on can be serviced the way that they need to be serviced, and you need people to do that.
Yeah, it's so well said, Dan. I mean, it is obviously the challenge of growth is that, right? It's like, well, now we got more opportunities, more people to deal with, but we've got to have that talent. You answered this already to a degree, but what I heard of this is that you're always trying to, just like you said, with clients, build a pipeline of people that are potential opportunities down the road for the agency. Is that something you guys are constantly talking about, or how do you do that? Because maybe today isn't the right time, but you build that relationship like with a future client, and 6 months from now are like, hey, is this something you want to look at? And that's a quality candidate.
Yeah, a year ago I would tell you no. It
Mhm.
was, hey, we have a spot, let's bring somebody in. This last year we have been very diligent and dedicated to the fact that we know we have to build that pipeline. We know that there's going to be gaps that need to be filled. We know that there's going to be more people and additional people that need to be brought onto the team. So we've done a nice job of, when you meet somebody, file that away, share it with the group. Like you said, maybe it's not today, but it might be tomorrow. And it's important to have those names handy when we do need that and are ready to make that change.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the things, because you guys have known our organization, again, the long-term relationship well before I've been part of Sitkins. Again, your dad goes way back with Roger. But one of the things that I find that you guys do really well, and it's many years, is to have a true differentiated selling system or selling process. And so I'm curious, Dan, of how you've used that, to your advantage, your competitive advantage. And obviously, you don't have to give a ton of detail, but just overall, your approach, what it's done for you as an agency. Tell me just about the set offense or selling system you guys are implementing.
Yeah, the set offense is really surrounded by two different things, right? It's understanding the risk, understanding the client's needs, and listening to what that looks like. Um, so many agents out there, right? We've talked about it all the time. Apples to apples. Let's see your policies, let's quote it, and let's deliver a solution for you. We've done a really nice job of putting together a plan, going out there and listening to the client.
Mhm.
Uh, that's been, the selling system it's unique. We take it out there, we understand the risk. It's really important that we're risk first and that you're a good listener, because those are the two things that clients want right now. They want to be heard, they want to be listened to. And when you're talking about the risk that impacts their business and building a solution around that risk, it's not just about price anymore.
Yeah.
Sure, I can bring you the best price. What coverages do you want to give up? Right?
Mhm.
That's the market that we're in. And anybody can do that. But you build the relationships by taking care of your clients and having a risk conversation about what we do and how it can better impact their business.
Yeah.
But it is a nice system. It's a 4-step process that we go through. It's very similar to the risk concierge program that you offer. We've gone through that workshop a few times and catered ours based off of what that looks like. But it's very, very beneficial to have that in your toolbox when you're going out there to prospect, because it's not the same thing that every other agent's doing out there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I have to ask because it happened. I know, you're just so those that are listening. Dan's. I mentioned he's a leader. He leads the sales team as well as far as the agency. He produces a book. I said he's a husband. He's a dad. He's at home right now. His kids go around. If we have time to answer this question, Dan, maybe you don't because you got to run on some of this. But it is a question that so many people deal with that are wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend for you that you have some magic bullet answer because I don't think there is one. But how do you deal with the multiple obligations, both professionally and personally? Because there's obviously a huge challenge. That what have you found some things that have worked well for you?
Yeah, there are challenges, right? It's whether I'm leading the team, whether I'm producing my own book of business, whether I'm, at home being the best husband and father that I can be. Uh, Really, you've given me a lot of really good advice. I know that you've gone through very similar life experiences that I'm going through right now. Um, but protecting your time and protecting your calendar, I think, is probably the best advice that you've given me when it comes to my time management. I have to be a little bit professionally selfish about what my calendar looks like.
Yep.
And some of that is saying no, and some of that's saying no to my own team, which is not always easy. And it's a change from what we've done in the past, but asking them to, hey, I don't have time right now, but can you find 15 minutes on my calendar? That goes a long way, because you're not having your 10, 12 interruptions a day, people stopping in to talk to you, because, you can always write more business. You can always go out there and build new relationships. What you can't get is more time.
Right.
And, making sure that we're protecting that the best we can in a professional manner is really important, and has been very successful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things we could talk about that, but again, I know it's a huge challenge for everybody, and I get it. I don't think anybody's perfected this, because life isn't perfect. Even if you think you got it all right, think other things jump out at you. But I think the biggest thing, Dan, I know in our coaching relationship is, like, we talk to producers, designing your perfect week. Like, what would your perfect week look like? Knowing that every week's a little bit different. But the biggest thing, and I wrote this down, this is so hard for me, is just be where you are. And, but if you haven't set up some boundaries up front about that, it becomes really, really difficult. And I know, Dan, I'll just use one example, because I know we've talked about this in the past, but like with your sales team, right? I mean, they might want you all the time. Like, hey, I need thought on this. What should I do here? How do I do this? And as a person who wants to help others, it's a very difficult thing to say, I can't right now. But if you're proactive and said, listen, I want to help encourage, empower, and coach you the best that I can, and we've talked about some of this, this is when I need you to bring me some of these things so I can be fully engaged and have this conversation with you. Because quite frankly, this might be a bad analogy, but you think about from a sales relationship, have you ever just quickly emailed or replied back to a client just because it's quick and you want to get out of the way, and you realize it wasn't your best work? Like, it happens. And then same thing happens with our team. So I think it's having their best interest in mind, that you are in the state you need to be to lead them well. And I think you're doing a really good job of that, Dan. So I applaud you. All right, I have one more question. I know you've got a busy schedule, and we got started a bit late because of technology, but if you were having a conversation with the younger version of you, so young, oh, you're already young. So I hate to even say younger Dan, just out of college, right? So you just got out of college, and you run into the current version of yourself, and younger Dan says, older Dan, if there's one piece of advice you could give me from what you know now, what would it be?
I'm probably going to cheat a little bit here and give you two answers,
That's okay.
but I would say that the two things that have made the biggest impact on me and my professional development, in not just professional development, growth as a person, father, husband, all those things, is number one, probably don't sweat the small things so much. It's easy to get so frustrated and so bent out of shape over the little things that really don't matter that much. And you could get hung up for a day or a week thinking about a small thing that happened, but really that takes you so far off the path that you want to go on. Let some of the little stuff go, concentrate on the end goal of why you do what you do. And that's probably the second point that I would say is spend a lot of time identifying your why. And that's something that Sitkins talks about a lot. The first couple of years of my career, I was out of college, and, I was working for an insurance carrier. And then I came back to the agency, and I was like, sure, I got a target on my back. I'm Kevin's son. I got to write as much business as I can. But, you don't give a lot of thought to why you do what you do outside of, hey, I know I got to write business. So I don't hear about it from my father. But,
a good guy, by the way, Dan.
That's right. As things change, though, and, you're a husband, you get now 3 little kids at home, and you start thinking about why you do what you do, whether it's provide the lifestyle, be able to do things with your family, have a flexible work-life balance where yes, you work hard, but you also play hard with the family. And being able to identify that in the early mornings, the late nights, the stressful times, you sit back and say, yeah, it's hard, but this is why I'm doing it. And there's a lot of reward when you're able to get home, when you're able to go on a vacation with your family, or take the long weekend to go do something. Just a good reminder of why you do what you do. And if you let the little stuff go along the way, you're going to be a lot happier in the process.
That's so good. Yeah, I love those. And yeah, it was two, but it was really one. So you
There
still
you go.
passed it.
We merged it.
Yeah, you merged it well. You bridged it together. So hey Dan, listen, I know you're working from home today. You got the kiddos running around. Any final words you'd like to share with the audience here before we depart?
No, I mean it's hard work to get to where we are and where we want to go. Incredibly worth it. And we couldn't do it without the relationship we've had with Sitkins. I mean, my dad goes back to the early days of him and Roger, and tells us stories about when he was one of the first agencies there and the things that they've done together. And, we've transitioned the relationship over to Brent and dealing with myself and Pete. And you can't even talk about the value that it's added to our agency. We've had situations over the past year where it might be a producer issue, or it might be an agency management issue, or it might just be a disagreement between me and my brother. And the ability to get Brent on the call and just give a extra opinion of, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? That it's really a coach, a leader that we can rely on, somebody that gives us some really solid direction of where we want our agency to go. And, I give a lot of credit to you and the team there at Sitkins, Brent. You guys are incredible. You've added a ton of value, figuratively and literally, to our agency. And just very happy that we have this relationship.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Same way. And likewise, I mean, I say we learn a ton from our clients. And here's the biggest thing. There are certain people that talk about stuff, and there are certain people that take action and stuff. And you guys, for years as an organization, obviously your dad, people on your team, right? I've had the pleasure of talking to other people on your team, and again, inspired much by your leadership, Dan, and your brother Pete's leadership, buying into something that we do have standards of excellence, and we know we're not going to be perfect, but we also know that we owe it to ourselves, to our team, to our clients, to keep growing and developing. And that's what you guys keep doing. So kudos to you. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If there's been some value added to you, like, share, subscribe, whatever you do in the podcast world. I can't keep track of it anymore, but just share the message. We want to help as many agency leaders. If you want to learn more about what we do, be part of what Dan does and his team does with us, certainly reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation, help your agency take that next step and be that best version possible. So Dan, thanks again. And for everybody else, I wish you all the best, your success. Thanks for listening.